My name is Alara Weston. I am 29 years old. And the last thing my mother ever said to me at that dining room table, the thing she said in front of 12 people while sliding a pen across the polished wood so I could sign away everything I was ever supposed to inherit, was this. You were always our biggest disappointment. She didn't flinch. She didn't hesitate. She said it the way someone announces the weather. Cold. Rehearsed. And so completely final that the air in the room seemed to leave all at once. That was 3 years ago. I walked out of that house with nothing. No money. No family. No safety net. Not a single person stood up. Not one voice said, wait. Please subscribe and like this video and listen to my story till the end, and let me know which city you're listening from. That way, I can see how far my story has traveled. Because what happened after that afternoon? Nobody in that room saw it coming. Not my mother. Not my father. And especially not my sister Serena. The day those two lawyers ended up on the phone together, 3 years later, everything shifted. And when my father finally heard the number, he said the same 2 words over and over again, like a man watching his entire world tilt sideways and not knowing how to stop it. But let me take you back first. Back to that Sunday in March. The day my family sat me down and quietly erased me. It starts on a Wednesday night. I'm cross-legged on the floor of my studio apartment in Hartford, Connecticut. Fabric samples everywhere. A client's floor plan pinned to the wall. It's my first real solo design project, a living room renovation, and the budget is $800. $800. I am so proud of it, you have no idea. I'm sitting there in my little apartment, surrounded by color swatches and graph paper, and I feel like the whole world is finally opening up for me. Just a little. Just enough. Then my phone buzzes. My mother's name. Diane Weston. The message is 4 words, family meeting this Sunday. Don't be late. No hello. No explanation. No warmth of any kind, just instructions, the way she always communicated. Like affection was a currency she decided long ago not to waste on me. Something feels off. Something in those 4 words feels sharper than usual. More prepared. But it's family. And no matter how many times they've let me down, no matter how many Sunday dinners ended in silence or sideways comments about my career choices, I still show up when they call. That's always been my problem. Sunday morning. I drive 3 hours from Hartford to Fairfield County. The March rain has not stopped in days. The windshield wipers slap a rhythm I can't shake. When I turn onto Hollow Ridge Lane, the house rises out of the gray like something built to make you feel small. Stone front. Black shutters. The kind of home that doesn't just say, we have money, it says, we have always had money, and don't you forget it. I grew up here. I never once felt like I belonged here. When I walk through the front door, 12 people are already seated around the dining room table. 12. My grandmother, Rosie, sits nearest the window, hands folded tight in her lap, eyes on the floor. Uncle Raymond, my father's younger brother, is beside her. Jaw tight. He won't look at me either. Aunt Carol. 3 cousins I haven't seen in over a year. Everyone dressed like they're attending something formal. A funeral, maybe. At the head of the table sits a man I recognize but have never trusted, Mr. Hartley, my parents' estate attorney. Silver-haired. Reading glasses hanging from a chain. A thick leather folder open in front of him like a verdict waiting to be delivered. My father, Charles, stands behind his chair. Arms crossed. He doesn't greet me. My mother, Diane, gestures to the single empty chair at the far end of the table. The one that's been left for me like an afterthought. Like a seat at the children's table. And there, right at my father's right hand, sits Serena. My older sister. Pressed blazer. Pearl earrings. Perfect posture. She doesn't look at me. But her stillness says everything. She already knows exactly what is about to happen. On the table in front of my chair, there is a single document. My name is printed at the top. I don't have time to read further before my father clears his throat. Sit down, Alara. This won't take long. I sit. The chair is cold against the back of my knees. My father nods at Mr. Hartley. And Mr. Hartley opens that leather folder and begins reading in the flattest, most emotionless tone I have ever heard, the kind of tone designed specifically to strip the life out of the most devastating words. The estate. All of it. Every cent. Being transferred to Serena Marie Weston. The house on Hollow Ridge Lane. The beach cottage up in Mystic. The investment accounts. The trust fund my grandfather built over 40 years of working, saving, sacrificing. Total estimated value. $4 million. Every wall. Every memory. Every single thing that was supposed to be shared between two daughters. Serena's name appears on every line. Mine appears on none. I look at my father. And me? He doesn't answer. He adjusts his cufflink and fixes his gaze on a point just past my shoulder, like looking directly at me would cost him something he isn't willing to spend. My mother fills the silence. She's been waiting for it. I can tell by the way she exhales, slow, controlled, like the relief of finally saying out loud what she's been thinking for years. You were always our biggest disappointment. She says it the way you'd read a grocery list. Calm. Measured. We're not going to pretend anymore. The room doesn't move. My grandmother Rosie stares down at her folded hands. Uncle Raymond shifts in his seat, but says nothing. Aunt Carol studies the tablecloth. My cousins look at the wall, the window, the floor, anywhere that isn't my face. Like I've already ceased to exist and looking at me would only complicate things. Serena sits perfectly still. She doesn't speak. But I catch it. The smallest movement at the corner of her mouth. Not quite a smile. Close enough to be one. Mr. Hartley clears his throat. He slides the document toward me across the polished table. A relinquishment of inheritance rights. Bright little tabs already marking the signature lines. We'll need your signature to finalize. I look at the pen. I look at my mother. Her chin is lifted. She's daring me to fall apart. She wants the scene. She needs to be able to say later that I made it difficult. I pick up the pen. My hand is steady. That surprises even me. I heard you, Mom. I sign. I stand before the ink is dry. Nobody stops me. Nobody says wait. Nobody says, are you okay? The room exhales as I push back from the table, not with relief, but with the quiet, collective understanding that the uncomfortable part is now over. For them. I walk down the hallway toward the front door. My footsteps sound too loud on the hardwood. To my left, the gallery wall. I have walked past it 1,000 times in my life. 3 framed photographs in silver frames, perfectly spaced. Serena at her law school graduation. Serena accepting a dean's award. Serena between my mother and father on a balcony in Rome, everyone laughing. There are no photographs of me. Not one. I open the front door. The rain is still falling. My phone buzzes before I reach my car. A text from Serena. No hard feelings, right? It's just business. I stare at it for 10 full seconds. Then I delete it. The drive back takes 3 hours. I make it 20 minutes before I have to pull over. I park on the shoulder of the highway, cut the engine, and sit. Cars blur past in the rain. The drops hammer the roof of my little car so hard it sounds like applause. I don't cry. I don't scream. I don't do any of the things you might expect from someone who just got erased by her own family in front of an audience of 12 people. I just sit with it. The weight of being subtracted from your own family like a line item on a spreadsheet that didn't add up to enough. 40 minutes pass. Then I start the car. When I get home, my apartment is exactly as I left it. Fabric samples on the floor. The floor plan pinned to the wall. A bowl of cereal on the counter from breakfast. Nothing has changed. But everything has changed. I check my bank account. $3,200. No family. No connections. No one coming. I sit down on the kitchen floor that night, not the couch, the floor, because the floor felt honest, and I make a list. Not of what I've lost. Of what I still have. It's a short list. But it's mine. The first client cancels on a Tuesday. Hi Alara, we've decided to go in a different direction. Best of luck. No explanation. I send a polite reply and move on. These things happen. The second cancellation comes 4 days later. This one stings. It was a full kitchen renovation, 3 weeks of planning, measurements already taken. The homeowner calls instead of emailing. We heard you're going through some personal issues, she says, carefully. We just think it's better to work with someone more stable right now. I ask who told her that. She hesitates. I'd rather not say. Something cold settles low in my stomach. 2 cancellations in 1 week. Both using language that sounds coached. Both walking away for reasons that have absolutely nothing to do with the quality of my work. I take on smaller jobs. A living room refresh for a rental unit. $800. A color consultation for a couple in the next town over. $200. I eat cereal for dinner 3 nights a week. Not because I'm being romantic about hardship. Because cereal is $3.49 a box. Rock bottom is not dramatic. That's what nobody tells you. It's quiet. It's splitting a box of pasta into 3 meals and calling it budgeting. It's waking up at 3 in the morning wondering if you made a terrible mistake choosing a life that your family refused to respect. In week 3, I do the only thing I can think of. I call my Uncle Raymond. My father's younger brother. He was always the gentler one. He once told me that my eye for color reminded him of my grandmother Rosie. That was one of the nicest things any member of my family had ever said to me. Alara, I love you, he says, on the phone. But don't pull me into the middle of this. He hangs up. And I understand. There is no middle. There is the Weston family and there is me. 2 separate countries now, with no shared border. That same evening, an email lands in my inbox from an address I don't recognize. Someone requesting a design consultation for a penthouse in the city. Budget described simply as a significant. I almost delete it. It feels too perfect. Too convenient. Too much like something that only happens in stories. I don't delete it. The truth finds me 6 weeks later in a coffee shop on Chapel Street. It's a Saturday morning. I'm nursing a cup of black coffee and reviewing sketches for a small bathroom remodel, the only project I have left, when a woman sits down across from me without asking. Miriam Cole. Former client. I redesigned her home office the previous autumn. Alara. I thought that was you. Her face carries an expression I can't quite read. Half guilt. Half something else. I have to ask you something, she says. Are you still doing design work? Of course. Why? She stirs her coffee slowly. Because your sister told me you weren't. The words land like a slap. Serena called you? Not directly. She mentioned it at a dinner party. Said you'd stepped back from your business. That you were going through a very rough time. Miriam pauses, and I can see her deciding how much to share. She also said your family had cut ties with you, for reasons she couldn't get into. She made it sound serious, Alara. Legal, almost. There were people at that dinner who work in real estate. Word travels. I set down my pencil. My hands are shaking. Not from sadness this time. From something much harder than sadness. Did she say what the reasons were? No. That's what made it worse. She left it open. And people filled in the blanks themselves. I understand now. The cancellations. The sudden distance. The careful, coached language from clients who barely know me but have already decided I'm someone not to trust. Serena didn't just take my inheritance. She was quietly, methodically burning the ground behind me. No fingerprints. No direct accusations. Just whispers at dinner parties and one perfectly placed implication at a time. Plausible deniability wrapped in the performance of a concerned sister. I want to call her. I want to scream. I want to drive back to Hollow Ridge Lane and slam my hands on that mahogany table and make every single person in that room look me in the eye. Instead, I thank Miriam. I finish my coffee. And sitting right there in that booth with my ruined client list and my $6 latte, I make a decision. I will not confront Serena. I will not beg my parents. I will rebuild somewhere she cannot reach me. Before we keep going, I need to ask you something. Because if you've ever had someone in your life quietly work against you while smiling to your face, you know exactly how this feels. That special kind of betrayal that doesn't leave bruises. The kind that leaves you standing in a coffee shop holding a pencil, trying to figure out how long it's been happening. Drop a comment right now. Just the word Serena if you've ever had a person like that in your life. Someone who smiled at you while making sure you couldn't move forward. I see every single comment. And I'll be honest, some of them broke my heart. Some of them made me feel so much less alone than I ever expected. Okay. Let's keep going. Because it gets worse before it gets better, and then it gets so much better than you can imagine. 3 months after the meeting, I break my own rule and call my mother. Not to beg. Not to cry. I need one answer. She picks up on the third ring. Alara. Not a question. Not a greeting. Just an acknowledgement that I still technically exist. Did you plan it, Mom? The meeting. The 12 people. Mr. Hartley. All of it. Was it planned? Silence. We did what was best for the family. For the family, or for Serena? Serena never gave us a reason to worry. I never gave you one either. Longer silence this time. I hear her breathing. I hear the kitchen faucet dripping, the one my father has been promising to fix for 7 years. Strange, the details that sharpen when you're waiting for your mother to decide whether she'll be honest with you. Her voice softens, but it's the softness of someone explaining something to a child who should already know better. Alara, if you'd listened to us from the beginning, gone into law, or at least taken something stable, none of this would have happened. You chose this path. We didn't choose it for you. There it is. The core of it. In Diane Weston's world, obedience equals love. I disobeyed. So I no longer qualify. This is the last time I'll be calling this number. Don't be dramatic. I'm not being dramatic, Mom. I'm being clear. I hang up. And I keep my word. The silence that follows becomes a wall. Every day I don't reach for the phone, it grows another inch higher. At first the quiet is agonizing. Then it becomes bearable. Then one morning I wake up and realize something nobody told me would happen. The anger runs out. And what's left, underneath all of it, after all the grief and the rage and the nights on the kitchen floor, what's left is quiet. A strange, steady, terrible quiet that sounds a lot like the first breath of freedom. I left you at the lowest point. $3,200. A studio apartment in Hartford that smelled like someone else's cooking. A client list being quietly dismantled by my own sister, one dinner party whisper at a time. And a kitchen floor that I sat on more often than I'd like to admit, not because I was being poetic about suffering, but because sometimes the floor is the only thing that feels solid when everything else is shifting. So I want you to understand where I was standing when Vivian Cross walked into my life. I was not standing anywhere impressive. The email is still sitting in my inbox when I wake up that Thursday morning. I'd left it overnight, half convinced I'd imagined it. But there it is. A name I don't recognize, AV, Cross Consulting, requesting a design consultation for a penthouse in the city. The email is brief, professional, and contains one line that I read 3 times: budget is not a constraint for the right designer. I write back. Carefully. Professionally. Like someone who has a full calendar and is graciously considering adding one more project. I hit send and then sit there at my kitchen table with my coffee, fabric samples at my elbow, and my heart going about twice the speed it should be. We meet the following Tuesday. 18th floor of a building overlooking Bushnell Park. I take the elevator up and the doors open onto the most spectacular disaster I have ever seen. The previous tenant had gutted the kitchen and simply left. Walls stripped to raw drywall. Pipes exposed. Subfloor showing through where someone ripped up the tile and didn't bother replacing it. Dust everywhere. Broken light fixtures hanging like sad little chandeliers. Natural light flooding in through floor-to-ceiling windows like the building itself is trying to apologize for everything inside it. Most designers would walk in here and see a problem. I walk in and see a cathedral. I don't even notice Vivian Cross at first. I'm already moving through the rooms, touching walls, crouching to check sightlines, turning in slow circles to understand how the light moves at different times of day. I measure angles with my hand the way my design professor taught me years ago, the way I always do when a space is speaking to me. After about 40 minutes, I turn around and she's standing in the doorway. Vivian Cross. 62 years old. Self-made. Owner of commercial properties across the state and down through the Carolinas. Silver rings on 3 fingers. The kind of handshake that tells you in half a second that this woman has been underestimated her entire life and has thoroughly enjoyed proving people wrong every single time. She has her arms crossed and the faintest smile on her face. You see space differently than anyone I've met, she says. I don't have a response prepared. I wasn't pitching. I wasn't performing. I was just doing the thing I have always loved, the way I have always done it, in a room that needed someone to love it. I just see what it could be, I tell her. She nods once. Like that answer settled something. Good. Because that's exactly what I need. The project takes 5 months. The budget is $120,000, more money than I have ever been responsible for in my entire life, and some nights I lie awake certain I'm going to ruin it. I source materials from salvage yards, from artisan workshops, from a tile maker 3 states away who does work I've never seen anywhere else. Every single choice is deliberate. Every corner tells a story. I don't sleep much. I eat whatever's fastest. I fall asleep at my desk with a pencil still in my hand more times than I can count. But when it's finished, when I walk through those rooms for the last time before handing them over, I cry a little. Not from stress. Not from relief. From the pure, overwhelming fact that something beautiful has come out of the ugliest season of my life. Something I made. Something nobody can take back. Vivian walks the completed penthouse and doesn't say a word for a long time. She moves through each room slowly. She stands at the main window and looks out over the park. She runs one hand along the reclaimed wood panel I spent 2 weeks sourcing and 3 days installing myself. Then she turns. I have 3 colleagues who need someone exactly like you. Within 2 months, I have 4 active projects. Real ones. Not $800 living room refreshes. Full residential redesigns with clients who found me through Vivian's name and who treat me, from the very first meeting, like someone worth trusting. Over dinner one evening, Vivian says something that barely registers at the time. We're at a restaurant near her office. It's late. We're tired and happy. She pushes her dessert plate aside and says, casually, like it's nothing. I'm exploring boutique hospitality. If you ever want to invest your time, not your money, just your time, I'd like to talk. I don't invest in people who need saving. She looks at me. I invest in people who just need a door. I smile. I file it away. I don't know yet what those words are going to mean. Okay, I have to pause right here. Because I want to ask you something that I've been thinking about since this chapter of my story. Have you ever had a Vivian cross? Someone who showed up in your life right when things were darkest, not to rescue you, not to fix anything, but just to say, I see something in you that you can't see in yourself right now? Drop a comment and tell me. Because the people who do that for others, the ones who open doors they didn't have to open, they deserve to be talked about. They deserve to be remembered. Vivian didn't know what my family had done to me. She hired me because of my work. Full stop. And that meant everything to someone whose own parents had decided her work would never be worth anything. Okay. Back to the story. Because things are about to pick up speed. 8 months after the meeting on Hollow Ridge Lane, I leave Connecticut. Vivian's boutique hotel project is in Asheville, North Carolina. A city tucked into the Blue Ridge Mountains, full of artists and craftspeople and people who moved there because they chose a different kind of life and weren't apologizing for it. It sounds, honestly, like the exact place a person goes when they need to stop running and start building. I pack my car, a 12-year-old sedan with a dent in the passenger door that I've never gotten fixed because it feels like a character detail, and I drive south. Everything I own fits in the trunk and the back seat. Fabric samples. A box of design books. 3 houseplants that I am not leaving behind, I don't care what anyone says. The drive takes 9 hours. I cry somewhere around hour 5, not the heavy, ugly kind of crying, but the soft kind. The kind that comes when something is finally, genuinely over and you can feel it in your chest releasing. I put on music. I open the windows. The air smells different the further south I drive, warmer, greener. Like something waking up. Asheville. I rent a 1-bedroom apartment above a pottery studio. The floors creak when you walk across them. The water pressure is, at best, a suggestion. The walls are thin enough that I can hear the radio from the studio below every morning. Old songs, mostly. Soft ones. It's perfect. I file the paperwork for an LLC. I choose the name carefully. I go through 7 options before I land on it. Something clean. Something that doesn't carry any history. Arden Spaces. No Weston anywhere. A clean start deserves a clean name. Vivian and I formalize our arrangement. She invests $150,000 into Arden Spaces. This is not charity. It is a business agreement, terms, margins, milestones, profit splits by percentage, everything documented by an attorney, everything above board. I handle design. She connects me with property owners across the region who are renovating commercial spaces. We split profits according to what we agreed on paper. I work 14-hour days. Some nights I fall asleep at my desk with fabric swatches still spread across the surface and my coffee sitting cold at my elbow. I don't check social media. I don't call Connecticut. I don't look back. The world I came from grows smaller every single week until it feels less like something I lived and more like something I watched once from a very safe distance. I am building. Quietly. Steadily. Without anyone's permission. Then one Tuesday morning, my phone buzzes with a name I haven't seen in years. Nathan Clark. College friend. Real estate attorney in Charlotte. He spotted my LLC filing in the North Carolina Business Registry. Is this you? He texts. Alara Weston running an interiors firm in Asheville? Congrats. Coffee sometime? For the first time in 8 months, I smile without having to think about it first. I text back immediately. Name a place. Nathan Clark looks exactly the way I remember from college. Tall. Slightly disheveled in the way of someone who wears a good suit but doesn't particularly care about it. He orders black coffee. I order the same. Some things don't change no matter how much everything else does. We catch up. He tells me about his practice, real estate law, 5 years, good clients, steady work. He asks about Arden Spaces. I tell him the broad strokes. Vivian's investment. The hotel project. The commercial redesigns. He listens carefully. Lawyers always do. Then I tell him the part one haven't told many people. The meeting. The 12 relatives. The document. My mother's words. The pen. Nathan sets down his cup. His expression changes, from friendly, catching up with an old friend easy, to something focused. Something careful. Wait. Your sister, Serena Weston? Works at a firm up in Stamford? Yes. Why? He's quiet for a moment. Her name came up in a transaction I was reviewing last week. A commercial deal in the Southeast. She was copied on an email chain between a broker and a property management group. That doesn't make sense. Serena doesn't do commercial real estate. That's exactly what I thought. He leans forward slightly. Alara, in those emails, your sister was warning them about you. She described you as financially unreliable. Said your family cut ties with you over serious trust concerns. She used your full name. The coffee tastes like ash. She told them not to work with anyone connected to Alara Weston. I don't speak. The coffee shop noise fills the space between us. The espresso machine. Someone laughing at a table behind me. Music bleeding through a speaker somewhere. Nathan watches me carefully. Don't do anything yet, he says. Let me look into it. But Alara, if this is what I think it is, your sister wasn't just favored. She was actively working to make sure you couldn't get back up. I nod. My hands are flat on the table. They are completely still. But underneath the surface, underneath the calm and the control and the careful, measured breathing, something is beginning to shift. End of part 2. Stay with me. Because in part 3, the evidence comes to light. The truth about what Serena has been doing, not just to my client list, not just in Connecticut, but across multiple states over 14 months, comes out in the most methodical, devastating way. And I have to decide, do I use it? And if so, how? Part 3 is coming. And trust me. You do not want to miss it. Welcome back. If you're just joining us, take a breath. And maybe go back and listen to parts 1 and 2 first, because what I'm about to tell you lands so differently when you understand exactly where I started. The kitchen floor. The $3,000. The sister who was smiling at every dinner party while making sure nobody in 3 states would hire me. We're 18 months out from the day I signed those papers. And things are about to get very interesting. Arden Spaces finishes its 12th project on a Tuesday afternoon in October. I have a leather notebook. Vivian gave it to me the first Christmas after our partnership began, the understated kind of gift she specializes in, and I keep a running log in it. Every project. Every number. Every milestone. 12 renovations. Annual revenue, $1.2 million. I write it down. I stare at it. I write it again on a different line to make sure it's real. It still doesn't feel real. Vivian and I make our first major acquisition together. A neglected commercial building in South Asheville. 3 stories. Original brick exterior. Condemned by the city 2 years prior. Everyone we talk to, every contractor, every investor, every person with any knowledge of the local real estate market, tells us it's a money pit. We look at it and see something completely different. I redesign the interior from the ground up. Vivian handles permits and zoning. We pour 6 months and every available dollar into it. There are weeks where I genuinely do not know if we've made a catastrophic mistake. There are nights I sit on the floor of that gutted building in the dark, eating a sandwich, wondering if the people who told us to walk away were right. They weren't right. When we finish, the building houses 4 luxury retail tenants and 2 independent design studios. Net profit after renovation, $340,000. I sit in my car outside the building the afternoon the last tenant signs, and I laugh. Not a polite laugh. A full, stupid, overwhelmed laugh that fogs up the windows. Because 18 months ago I was rationing pasta. And now we just turned a condemned building into something beautiful and profitable and mine. My name starts appearing in places. A feature in a regional design magazine. A mention in a Charlotte real estate newsletter. Small recognitions. The kind of thing that wouldn't mean much to someone who had never been told they'd never amount to anything. But for me, for someone whose own mother looked at her in front of 12 relatives and called her the family's biggest disappointment, every single one of them means everything. I frame the first article. I put it in the closet. I'm not ready for it on the wall yet. But I frame it. I hire 3 people. A project manager named Cass who has twice my organizational discipline and keeps me on track without making me feel managed. An assistant designer named Priya who sees things in spaces that I miss and who makes me better at the work just by being in the room. A bookkeeper named Gerald who looks at my expense reports with the expression of a disappointed parent and whom I adore completely. We work out of a converted warehouse space in West Asheville that smells like sawdust and fresh paint. Exposed brick. Good light. A corner I claimed as my own where I can sit with coffee and think for 15 minutes without anyone needing something from me. I still drive the old sedan with the dent. I still live in the 1-bedroom above the pottery studio. I still eat lunch at my desk most days. The money is growing. But my life, on purpose, stays small. I don't trust abundance yet. I'm still getting used to solidity. Then one evening, over takeout in Vivian's kitchen, she says something that stops my chopsticks midair. There's a parcel of land in Westport, Connecticut. Just came on the market. I set down my food slowly. It's adjacent to some residential estates in the Fairfield County area. She watches my face. I thought you might want to look at the listing. She doesn't say anything else. She doesn't have to. Westport borders my parents' neighborhood. Hallow Ridge Lane is less than 4 miles from that parcel. I hold her gaze for a long moment. Send me the listing. The evidence comes to light during routine paperwork. Nathan is doing due diligence for the Westport property purchase. Title searches. Transaction history. Standard procedures so boring that, as he describes it, they make you question why you went to law school. He is moving through chain of correspondence documents for surrounding parcels when he finds something that is not boring at all. An email. From Serena Weston. Sent 14 months earlier to a commercial broker named in the chain. Subject line, heads up, confidential. The content, Serena expressing concern about a woman named Alara Weston who may approach firms operating in the Southeast market. She describes me as financially irresponsible. Claims I was removed from the family over serious trust concerns. Advises the broker to exercise caution with anyone associated with that name. There are 3 more emails in the chain. Different recipients. Same language. Same careful, calculated phrasing. She never says anything that is technically a direct lie. She implies. She suggests. She lets every reader fill in the worst possible version of the story themselves. It is, from a purely technical standpoint, elegant. From a legal standpoint, in the state of Connecticut, it has a name. Tortious interference with business relations. Nathan sends me the chain. I read it once, sitting at my desk in Asheville with the afternoon light coming through the big warehouse window. The mountains are visible on the horizon. Pale blue. Steady. I don't scream. I don't cry. I close the laptop and I sit with it for a full hour. Just me and the sound of the city and the weight of understanding the full scope of what my sister has been doing. Not just the whisper at one dinner party. Not just the 2 early client cancellations. 14 months of deliberate, targeted, documented sabotage across multiple professional channels. 14 months of making sure that wherever I tried to plant something, the soil was already poisoned. Then I open the laptop. I call Nathan. Are these enough? More than enough. How long have you had them? 2 days. I wanted to verify everything before telling you. Keep them safe, I say. I'll decide when I'm ready. I'm not using them out of anger. I'm going to use them if she doesn't stop. Okay. I have to stop here. Because this is the exact moment where I want to know what you would do. If you were me, if you had just found out the full scale of what your own sister had been doing behind your back for over a year, what would your instinct be? Would you want to go to court? Would you confront her directly? Or would you do what I did, hold the evidence quietly, like a card you haven't played yet, and wait? Drop your answer in the comments. A for confront her directly. B for take it to court. C for hold the card and wait. I read every single comment on these videos. Every one. And sometimes the things you write in those comments are so honest and so brave that I have to step away for a few minutes before I can keep reading. Okay. Back to the story. Because here's where things start to turn. 3 years after the day I signed those papers, I walk into the Connecticut Real Estate Association's annual charity gala at a hotel in Hartford. I almost don't come. When Vivian mentioned it, 200 guests, black tie, every significant name in Connecticut real estate, my first instinct was no. I am not ready. I am not ready to stand in a room full of people who might know my family, who might have heard Serena's version of my story, who might look at me with that particular kind of pity that I cannot stand. Vivian doesn't let me hide. You're my business partner, Alara. You belong in that room. So here I am. Black dress. Simple cut. No jewelry. Hair straight and clean. I look like someone who doesn't need to prove anything. And for the first time in my life, and I want you to understand how much it took to get here, that is not a performance. That's just true. The ballroom is warm and gold-lit. Champagne on silver trays. A string quartet in the far corner playing something classical and understated. 200 people in dark suits and gowns, networking under chandeliers, laughing at things that only people who've never had to sit on a kitchen floor would find funny. I see them before they see me. My father, Charles, stands near the bar talking to Mr. Hartley. The same attorney who slid that document toward me 3 years ago. My mother, Diane, sits at a round table with my Aunt Carol, pearls at her throat, back perfectly straight, her champagne glass catching the light. And Serena. She's across the room, mid-conversation with a cluster of men in expensive ties. She's laughing. Gesturing. Completely in her element. Like she was built for exactly this kind of room. My chest tightens. 3 years of silence, and my body still reacts to them like a warning system. Like something old and animal that lives below the rational brain. Vivian puts her hand on my arm. Breathe. I breathe. Then Diane turns her head. Our eyes meet across 60 feet of polished floor. Her champagne glass stops halfway to her lips. Serena notices her mother's expression, follows her gaze, and finds me. For one full second, nobody in that corner of the room moves. Then Vivian walks straight toward the Weston table and I walk with her. She extends her hand to Mr. Hartley like they're old professional acquaintances. They probably are. Gerald. Good to see you. She turns smoothly, one arm gesturing toward me. Have you met my business partner? Alara Weston, the creative force behind Arden Spaces. She says it at full volume. Not aggressive. Not pointed. Just the completely natural tone of a woman introducing someone she is proud to know. Half the surrounding tables hear it. Charles turns slowly. His face goes through recognition, confusion, and then something I genuinely cannot name. He stares at me like he's seen a ghost who walked in through entirely the wrong door. Diane recovers first. She always does. Alara. Her smile appears instantly. Practiced. Camera ready. What a surprise. We've been so worried about you. She reaches for my hand. I let her take it for exactly 1 second. Then I pull back. I appreciate that, Mom. I've been well. Serena appears at the table's edge. She's watching me the way a chess player watches an unexpected move on the board. We heard you were doing some decorating work. She tilts her head. A small, patronizing smile. That's sweet. The word sweet lands exactly as she intends it. Diminishing. Dismissive. The same tone she's used my whole life. But Vivian heard it. She turns to Serena with the absolute, unruffled calm of a woman who has been eating people like this for 40 years. Decorating. A single beat. Arden Spaces manages a $6 million commercial portfolio. I'd hardly call that decorating. The table goes silent. A man seated beside Mr. Hartley lowers his glass. Two women at the table behind us stop their conversation. Serena's smile doesn't disappear. It freezes. Then a woman I don't recognize, a real estate lawyer, Nathan tells me later, leans over from the adjacent table. Arden Spaces? She owns that? We just contracted them for a project in Stamford. Serena's face drains of color. I stand perfectly still. I didn't come here to prove anything. I came because Vivian told me I belonged in the room. And right now, in this moment, standing in the warmth of that gold-lit ballroom, that is more than enough. End of part 3. In part 4, the phone call that changed everything happens. A 15-second silence on a lawyer's telephone line. A father reading a number out loud and not being able to believe it. And the beginning of the unraveling, not just of what Serena built against me, but of everything the Weston family thought they understood about which daughter they should have believed in. Part 4 is the one I had the hardest time telling. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. 1 week after the gala. That's when the phone call happens. I'm not even on that call. Nathan is. He tells me everything afterward, sitting across from me at his office in Charlotte, a legal pad full of notes between us. He walks me through it word by word, pause by pause. And I need to tell it to you the same way, because the details matter. The Westport property, the parcel that Vivian and I are purchasing in Connecticut, sits adjacent to the Weston family estate. Standard legal procedure requires a boundary survey and title verification. Nathan, as my attorney, reaches out to the attorney of record for the neighboring property. That attorney is Gerald Hartley. The same Mr. Hartley who sat at my family's dining room table 3 years ago with a leather folder and reading glasses on a chain, reading my inheritance out of existence in the flattest voice I've ever heard. Nathan makes the call. Routine. Professional. He identifies the purchasing entity. Arden Spaces LLC. Owner and principal Alara Weston. Silence on the line. Not a polite pause. Not the brief gap of someone gathering their thoughts. A long, airless nothing. Alara Weston. Hartley's voice shifts register. The same Alara Weston from the Weston inheritance file? That's correct. Another silence. Nathan says he can hear papers being shifted on a desk. I'll need to verify financials on the buyer side. Standard compliance for the boundary agreement. Of course, Nathan says. I'll send you a summary. He sends it that afternoon. Arden Spaces. Total portfolio valuation, including real property and business assets. Approximately $9.4 million. Nathan tells me the silence after Hartley reads that number lasts 15 seconds. 15 seconds. He knows because he counted. Then, very quietly, Hartley says, I'll need to contact my client. That's all. No commentary. No questions. Just the sound of a man who has served one family for 20 years suddenly having to recalibrate absolutely everything he thought he understood about them. Nathan sets down his pen and looks at me. Thea, that's a long time for a lawyer. I know. My hands are in my lap. My pulse is steady. But somewhere deep in my chest, behind all the calm, behind all the professionalism, behind 3 years of quiet and silence and rebuilding from the ground up, something exhales. Something that has been holding its breath for a very long time. Gerald Hartley calls Charles Weston that same afternoon. I find out the details later. Through Nathan. Through documents. Through the version that filters back to me in pieces, whether I want it or not. But here is what happens in the study of the Hallow Ridge Lane house, behind a closed door, on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon. Hartley lays it out simply. A property transaction. Adjacent parcel. Buyer, Arden Spaces LLC. Owned and operated by Alara Weston. Net valuation of combined assets, approximately $9.4 million. Charles says nothing for a long time. Then, that's impossible. Hartley reads the number again. Confirms the documentation. Notes that no Weston family funds appear anywhere in the company's capital structure. She built it alone. According to every filing I've reviewed, yes. That's impossible. My father says it again. Softer. Like the word is the only anchor he has left. That's impossible. My mother Diane is in the room. She's been listening on speaker from the armchair by the window. Her face hasn't changed expression. But her hand has gripped the linen napkin on the side table so tightly that her knuckles have gone white. In the living room, Serena is on the phone with someone. Her voice carries through the wall. Tight. Urgent. What do you know about Arden Spaces? The design company in North Carolina, have you heard of it? Charles sets the phone down. He stares at the wall where 3 photographs of Serena hang in silver frames. Then he looks at the empty space beside them. The bare wall where a photograph of his other daughter has never once appeared. I want to call her. Hartley's response is gentle but firm. Through attorneys, Charles. She has counsel now. This goes through proper channels. My father nods slowly. And in that nod, Nathan tells me this is what he heard afterward from someone who was there. Something breaks. Something that won't go back together. His daughter has a lawyer. Because of him. The emails surface that same week. And they change everything. Nathan is completing due diligence for the Westport purchase. Buried in a chain of professional correspondence between a regional brokerage and a property management firm, he finds something that stops him cold. An email from Serena Weston. Sent 14 months prior. Addressed to a commercial broker. Subject line, heads up, confidential. The content, Serena raising concerns about a woman named Alara Weston who may approach Southeast market firms. Describing me as financially irresponsible. Claiming I was removed from the family over serious trust concerns. Advising the broker to exercise caution with anyone connected to my name. 3 more emails in the chain. Different recipients. Same careful, devastating language. Serena never states anything that can be called an outright lie. She implies. She suggests. She lets every reader draw the worst possible conclusion themselves. It's elegant in the way that a trap is elegant. Designed to catch without leaving visible fingerprints. In Connecticut, it's called tortious interference with business relations. Nathan sends me the chain. I read it once, sitting at my desk in Asheville. The afternoon light is coming through the warehouse window. The mountains are blue on the horizon. I close the laptop. I sit with it for a full hour. Then I open the laptop again, and I call Nathan. Are they enough? More than enough. Keep them safe. I'll decide when I'm ready. I'm not going to use them out of anger. I pause. I'll use them if she doesn't stop. Okay. I'm going to stop here and ask you something, and I really mean it. If you were me right now, with the evidence in your hands, with a $9.4 million company, with every legal right to take your sister to court over documented, deliberate sabotage, what would you do? Drop it in the comments. Be honest. No judgment from me, I promise. Because when I've asked this in previous videos, some of the answers broke my heart. Some made me laugh. And more than a few made me realize that what I eventually decided to do is not what most people expected. Tell me in the comments. And honestly, just tell me in general what you're feeling right now, because this story is real, and sharing it with you means something to me that I don't have the right words for yet. Okay. Back to it. Because what I decide to do, it's not a lawsuit. It's something I think is more devastating. 2 days later, Nathan gets the call. Mr. Hartley, calling on behalf of Charles Weston. Formal tone. Careful words. My client would like to arrange a meeting with Ms. Weston. A family conversation. Nathan asks me. I think about it for one full day. I sit with it the way I've learned to sit with every hard thing in the past 3 years, without rushing toward the answer, without letting the old version of me take over. The version that used to show up when they called because she still hoped, every single time, that they'd changed. Then I tell Nathan, no. If my father has something to say, he can put it in writing. My father writes. The letter arrives through Hartley's office on personal stationery. Not letterhead. His own handwriting, which I haven't seen in years. Alara. I am incredibly proud of what you have accomplished. I had no idea. I would like to see you. We have a great deal to discuss. Can we talk? I read it at my kitchen table. I read it again standing at the window. I read it a third time sitting on the floor again, because some things don't change, like I did the night everything first fell apart. He's proud. Of course he is. Because now there is a number attached to my name. $9.4 million of validation. That's a language my father has always understood. But where was this letter when I was making $800 per project? Where was this pride when I was splitting a box of pasta into 3 dinners? When I couldn't keep a single client because his other daughter was quietly, methodically poisoning every professional relationship I tried to build, across multiple states, over 14 months, and he either knew or chose not to look. I dictate my response to Nathan. He sends it through Hartley. Thank you, Dad. But I don't need pride that arrives 3 years after it was due. I built my life without it. I'll continue without it. A week later, Charles sends a second letter. 2 words. Written in ink that has smudged slightly, like his hand was shaking when he wrote it. I'm sorry. I read it. I fold it. I put it in a drawer. I don't reply. I don't sue Serena. I want to be absolutely clear about that. Not because I've forgiven her, not yet. But because a lawsuit would turn my life into a courtroom exhibit. It would take everything I've spent 3 years building back and hand it over to a process I don't control. And I have spent 3 years taking my life back. I am not giving it to anyone else again. Instead, Nathan drafts a cease and desist letter. 5 pages long. Precise. Devastating. It names 4 specific documented instances of defamatory professional communication. It attaches the full email chain. It cites the relevant statute. And it ends with a single clear statement: if Serena Weston continues to disseminate false or misleading information regarding Alara Weston or Arden Spaces LLC, legal proceedings will be initiated without further notice. Nathan sends it certified mail to Serena's office at her law firm in Stamford. She receives it on a Thursday morning. I know this because Nathan gets a delivery confirmation at 10:14 in the morning. By 10:32, Serena is on the phone with our mother. I learn the content of that call through Nathan's professional contacts in the Connecticut legal community. Word travels in small professional circles. Especially when a practicing attorney gets served a cease and desist at her own firm during business hours. She has the emails. Serena's voice, I'm told, is flat. Controlled. But fast. The way people speak when they are calculating damage and don't have time to sound calm. What emails? Diane asks. All of them. Every communication I sent to brokers, to property managers, about Alara. A long pause. We'll handle it, Diane says. She says it in exactly the tone she used 3 years ago at the dining room table. The same tone. The same certainty. The same Diane Weston voice that has never once in my life admitted it was wrong about anything. But this time, it doesn't land the same way. There is a crack in it. A hairline fracture right down the center. That evening, Serena calls my phone directly. First time in 3 years. I watch her name light up the screen. I decline the call. Not because I'm afraid. Because there is nothing left to say that won't simply hand her another opportunity to manage the narrative. And that is the one thing I am done doing for her. The cease and desist does what cease and desist letters do when delivered to law firms. It travels. I never leak the emails. I never post them anywhere. I never mention them to anyone outside of Nathan and Vivian. But the letter arrived at Serena's firm during business hours. A legal secretary processed the delivery. A managing partner reviewed the cover sheet as standard protocol. Within 1 week, 2 senior associates know that Serena Weston used professional communication channels to defame her own sister. Within 2 weeks, the managing partner has a quiet conversation with Serena behind a closed door. She isn't fired. But she is reassigned. Moved from client-facing commercial transactions, the work she loved, the networking lunches, the gala appearances, the side of the job that was built on being seen, to internal compliance review. A windowless office. No client lunches. No industry events. In the Connecticut legal community, the story spreads the way professional gossip always spreads. Not with fireworks. With raised eyebrows. With carefully worded references that say almost nothing but mean everything. Difficult family situation. Judgment concerns. Not someone you want representing your interests. Serena's reputation doesn't collapse overnight. It erodes. Slowly. Permanently. I hear about it from Nathan, who hears it from colleagues, who hear it from other colleagues. I don't celebrate. There is nothing to celebrate in watching someone dismantle their own career with emails they chose to write. Then, one Sunday afternoon, a number I haven't seen in 3 years appears on my phone. Uncle Raymond. Ilara. His voice is heavier than I remember. I owe you an apology. For what? For that day. The meeting. I was sitting right there and I said nothing. I should have stood up. I should have said something. A long pause. I've thought about it 100 times. I close my eyes. Thank you, Uncle Raymond. That means more now than you know. He asks if he can visit sometime. I tell him Asheville is beautiful in the spring. When we hang up, I sit for a long time. The pottery studio below is quiet. The mountains outside the window are golden in the late light. And something in my chest that has been clenched tight for 3 years loosens just slightly. Not because Raymond's apology fixes anything. Not because it undoes the silence he chose that Sunday in March. But because it's real. And after so long surrounded by things that weren't, it matters. Welcome to the final part. If you've been with me since part 1, since the dining room table, since the pen, since the gallery wall with no photographs of me, I want you to know something before we begin. Thank you. Genuinely. The comments you've left, the messages, the stories you've shared in return, they've meant more than I have words for. More than I expected when I decided to tell this at all. Okay. Let's finish it. The house on Hollow Ridge Lane gets quieter after the cease and desist. I hear fragments of what's happening through Uncle Raymond, who has started calling every other Sunday. He keeps things light at first: weather, his dog, a funny story about Grandma Rosie that makes me laugh out loud in my kitchen, a real laugh, the kind I didn't hear from myself for a very long time. Those Sunday calls become something I look forward to in a way I didn't expect. A thread back to something that felt, once, like family. But sometimes, without meaning to, he lets details through. My father has stopped attending his weekly golf game. He spends long hours in his study. The bookshelves are lined with law journals he no longer opens. And on his desk, Raymond saw it once, there is a printout. A magazine article about art and spaces. My photograph in the corner. Charles has read it so many times the paper has gone soft at the fold lines. My mother holds the line in public. At brunch. At book club. At the Saturday farmers market. The story she's been telling for 3 years hasn't changed. Ilara was always the difficult one. Now that she has money, everyone wants to rewrite history. She says it with her chin lifted and her pearls perfectly placed. But Raymond tells me that late at night, he's heard her through a closed bathroom door. Not the performative kind of crying, not the kind designed to be noticed. The kind that sounds like it comes from a place she won't admit exists during daylight. The kind that doesn't have an audience. I don't know what to do with that. I sit with it for a long time and I still don't know. My father sends a third letter. It arrives the same way the others did, through Hartley's office, on personal stationery, in his own handwriting. But this one is longer. Elara. I'm not writing to ask you to come back. I understand I don't have that right anymore. I just want you to know, I was wrong. I see that now. I see you now. I spent 30 years measuring everything that mattered by whether it could be quantified. I measured you by that same standard and I missed everything that was actually real. I know it's too late. I'm not asking you to forgive that. I'm just asking you to know that I see it. I see you. I read it sitting on my porch. The mountains are turning gold in the late afternoon light. The air smells like wood smoke and the first cold breath of autumn. The pottery studio below is playing something soft. And I cry. For the first time in 3 years, I cry. Not the ugly, gasping kind. Not the kind that comes from pain. This is different. This is the quiet, chest-cracking kind that comes from receiving something you once needed desperately, after you've spent so long learning to live without it that you thought the need had closed over. It hasn't. It was just waiting. I cry for a long time. Then I fold the letter, put it in the drawer with the others, and sit there with the mountains turning colors outside my window. I don't reply. But I don't throw it away either. Over dinner at Vivian's farmhouse one evening, roast chicken, a bottle of wine she's been saving for no particular occasion, a low fire, her cat asleep in the armchair, she says something that changes how I understand everything. I knew your father. I set down my fork. Not recently, she says. 30 years ago, when I was just starting my first company. Charles Weston was a young attorney in Fairfield County. Ambitious. Sharp. One of my earliest legal advisors. I don't speak. He was good at his work. But he measured everything by numbers, revenue, returns, projections. If something couldn't be quantified, it didn't exist for him. She turns her wine glass slowly. He told me once that I lacked vision. That boutique real estate would never scale the way I was hoping. A pause. I ended the retainer that week. A year later, my company was outperforming every single projection he'd made. She looks at me across the table. When you first reached out about the Hartford penthouse, I didn't know who you were. I hired you because your portfolio was remarkable. I found out you were Charles Weston's daughter later, after you told me about the meeting. She's quiet for a moment. And I decided I wasn't going to let history repeat itself. Not because I have any particular feeling about your father. But because I know exactly what it is to sit across from someone who can't see past their own measuring stick and be told you will never be enough. I sit with this for a long time. Vivian didn't rescue me. She recognized me. She recognized the look in my eyes that she had once seen in her own mirror 30 years ago, standing in a young attorney's office on a rainy afternoon, being told that her vision had no real future. Thank you, I say, and it comes out smaller than I mean it. She shakes her head once. Don't thank me. Just keep building. The Westport property closes 6 months after the gala. I don't build a house on it. I don't build anything for myself. Instead, I convert it into a shared creative workspace. Studios and meeting rooms for young designers, architects, and artists who are just getting started. People who need a room to work in before they've earned the right to afford one. The kind of space I wish had existed when I was sleeping on my kitchen floor at 26 with $3,200 and a client list that was being quietly destroyed. I name it the Arden Collective. Vivian cuts the ribbon on a cold Saturday morning in February. There are about 40 people there. Clients. Colleagues. Uncle Raymond, who drives up from Connecticut and cries a little bit when I hug him and then pretends he didn't, which makes me laugh. I want to stop here and ask you something, and I really, really mean this. If you are someone who has ever been told by your own family that you are not enough, that you chose the wrong path, that you should have been more like someone else, that your presence at the table was a problem to be solved, I want you to hear me right now. You are not the difficult one. You are the one they couldn't contain. And that is not a flaw. Tell me in the comments. And if you've dealt with something similar, share your story. You're not alone. Subscribe for more stories about standing your ground and reclaiming your life. Because every week I read those comments, and every week there is someone in there who needed to hear that their version of the story is also worth telling. Okay. Almost done. But this last part, I have to get through it. The same week the Arden Collective opens, Serena sends her final email. I know I messed up. I know what I did was wrong. Can we please talk? I sit with it for 2 days. Then I reply. It takes me an hour to write 4 sentences. Serena. I forgive you. I mean that genuinely, without conditions. But forgiveness doesn't mean I want you back in my life. I wish you well. I press send. And something in my chest that I didn't even know was still braced for impact loosens. Not because forgiveness fixes what she did. Not because 4 sentences erase 14 months of deliberate sabotage and a lifetime of quiet cruelty wrapped in a pressed blazer and pearl earrings. But because carrying it was costing me something I couldn't afford to keep spending. I let it go. Not for her. For me. 2 days later, my phone rings. Diane. I almost don't answer. But something tells me this one conversation still needs to happen. Not for her sake. For mine. One last time, all the way through. You've proven your point, she says. Now come home. I'm standing at the window of my apartment. The mountains are blue and endless. The pottery studio below is playing something soft on the radio. Mom, I didn't prove a point. I built a life. Alara, I love you. I know you do, Mom. But I can't be someone you only value when the numbers are right. And I can't keep waiting for love that arrives on conditions. A long pause. This is my home now. I chose it. She's quiet. I hear her breathing on the line. And I wonder, honestly, genuinely wonder, if she's crying, or angry, or just sitting in the silence of a house that is now far too large for 2 people who pushed away the daughter they should have fought to keep. I hang up gently. Not with fury. Not with triumph. With something much quieter. Something that feels, finally, like peace. I don't tell you this story so that you'll hate my family. They're people. Flawed and stubborn and sometimes genuinely cruel, but people. My father was raised to believe that success had exactly one shape, and he couldn't recognize it when it showed up wearing paint-stained jeans and carrying fabric samples. My mother believed that love meant control, and when she lost the control, she lost the vocabulary for the love. My sister built her entire identity on being the better daughter, and when that foundation cracked, she panicked and she lashed out, not with her fists but with her words and her emails and her whisper campaigns, which are somehow so much more precise. They were wrong. All of them were wrong. But they weren't strangers. They were my family. My blood. The people who were supposed to be in my corner when everything went sideways. And that is what made it hurt the way it did. Not the money. Not the estate. Not even the $4 million. The fact that I loved them and they chose not to see me. Here is what I've learned. And I share this not as advice, I am no one's life coach, and I am certainly not standing here claiming I did any of this perfectly, but as something I carry with me now, everywhere I go. You do not need permission from the people who gave up on you. You only need one door. Sometimes you build that door yourself, from scratch, in a studio apartment with $3,000 and the sheer stubbornness of someone who refuses to disappear just because she was told to. Sometimes someone like Vivian Cross holds it open for you. Either way, the door belongs to you. Once you walk through it, it's yours. Setting limits with people who hurt you is not abandonment. It's not cruelty. It's the decision to stop bleeding for people who won't hand you a bandage. Today, Arden Spaces has 14 employees. Our portfolio is north of $10 million. Vivian is still my partner. Nathan is still my attorney. Uncle Raymond calls every other Sunday. The Arden Collective just accepted its 15th resident designer, a 24-year-old from New Haven who reminds me so much of the person I was at 26 that sometimes I have to look away and breathe for a second. I bought a house. I chose it myself. I renovated it myself. It smells like fresh paint and good coffee and the faint cedar from a reclaimed wood panel I installed in the study. Every single thing in it is something I chose. My father still writes letters sometimes. I still read them. I haven't replied. Maybe someday I will. Maybe I won't. That is my choice now. And there is nothing in the world that feels more like freedom than a choice that is entirely, completely, irreversibly your own. If you are sitting somewhere right now, in the aftermath of being told by the people who were supposed to love you unconditionally that you are not enough, please hear this. The best thing you can do is not prove them wrong. The best thing you can do is build a life so full, so genuinely yours, so rooted in the things that actually matter to you, that their opinion simply stops having anywhere to live. Not because you stopped caring, but because you started caring about the right things. That's my story. All of it. If you made it this far, I am so grateful you stayed. More grateful than I know how to say in a video. Now I want to hear yours. Have you ever had to walk away from family to save yourself? Are you still in the middle of it right now, just trying to figure out which direction is forward? Or are you on the other side, looking back at the hardest years of your life and barely recognizing the person who lived through them? Tell me in the comments. And if you've dealt with something similar, share your story. You're not alone. Subscribe for more stories about standing your ground and reclaiming your life, because every story that gets told makes it a little easier for the next person to tell theirs. I'll see you in the next one. And wherever you are right now, whatever kitchen floor you're sitting on, I hope you know that the list of what you still have, even when it's short, is enough to start from. It always has been.